Welcome to the Texas Lawyer Podcast, where we share stories from those who choose to practice law in the great state of Texas. I'm your host, Cheryl McGurr, and today we're sitting down with a lawyer who went from working in the hair and makeup movie industry to battling some of the toughest cases in Central Texas today. Today, we're talking with Lisa Hoing. Welcome to the podcast, Lisa.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're getting to sit down with you. You have such an interesting story, and I'm so excited to share it with our listeners. Please start just telling me about your life and what did that look like before practicing law ever came into your heart and mind?
I've had multiple careers in my life. I had a full ride acting scholarship to go to Southern Utah University. And while I was down there, I had a double major, theater and biology. And while I was down there, I fell in love with the art of makeup and hair. And so I studied under a fantastic makeup and hair artist, Larry Pennington, and apprenticed under him. And then went out on my own and joined up with the Utah Film Commission, and then worked primarily doing commercials, movies, all sorts of little things here and there. And so I started out doing that. Then I decided to teach theater to kids. And so I went back to school and got my undergraduate degree in elementary education and started teaching my fourth grade class in 1996. Then went to 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. You couldn't pay me enough money to do that anymore.
And so what made you think, I'll become a lawyer?
Well, two things happened. First, I had a horrible landlord when I was a teacher, and I was living out in the middle of nowhere. And he would not fix things on the house. He wouldn't repair anything. So I left, and there was an illegal lockout. So I sued him. And I did that through an attorney. I had a good time doing that. And I wasn't happy as a teacher. And so my dad said to me, well, I think you should be a lawyer. I've always wanted to be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer, and then I can live vicariously through you. And I thought, well, it's nowhere but up. So what the heck? Let's give it a try. That's what pointed me in that direction.
Yeah. And so what was so you were teaching at the time you decided you wanted to try applying for law school?
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, the first thing I had to do was start preparing for the LSAT. And that was completely a different type of thinking than I was used to thinking. In education, we are taught to see things very holistically and very globally. Everybody shares and everybody gets together and helps. It's a very communal type of scholarship. But in law, it is quite the opposite. It's very logical, very fact-based. And so I had to begin thinking like that for purposes of studying for the LSAT. I did that for a year on my own, and then I took the LSAT. And then and in that time, and my understanding is it's changed today. My understanding is that you can now take the LSAT multiple times, and they no longer average in the test scores. They just take your highest. But when I took the LSAT, and probably when you took it, Cheryl, it was a strategy issue that you had to choose, where you had to choose what your best was. So you had to be basically metacognitive. You had to be self-aware to determine whether you were actually performing at your best. Because if you took the test a second time and you scored lower, then those two scores were averaged together. So you had to make that strategic decision. My understanding is they don't have to do that anymore, which is a real shame because I think it's important step on learning how to become an attorney. Then I applied to several different universities, and I received an offer from the University of Nebraska. They had a joint psych law program I was interested in. I thought I would like to pursue being a jury consultant. And they had a PhD program in 5 years where you could get your JD, your Juris Doctorate, and your PhD in psychology at the same time. And so I applied to that, and They lost my application. And so they said, don't worry about it, though. You can't start the psychology portion of it until the second year anyhow. But after the first year of law school, I was just like, no, yeah, I'll be lucky to get through this first year. So we're not doing that. We're just going to go straight to law school.